Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In today's video, we'll be cutting and sewing this straight Milkmaid Bustier blouse. So if you're interested in this kind of video, keep on watching and let's get right into the video. So I already have my pattern paper on my work table, so I'll start by taking my point. The first point I'll take is the distance from my shoulder to my chest line, which is 8 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my under bust point, which is 13 inches. So I added half an inch to my under bust line. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my waistline, which is 16 inches. And the last point is the distance from my shoulder to my top length, which is 20 inches. I'm going to rule a straight line across all these points. So I have my chest line, my bust point, my under bust point, my waistline, and my top length. On my shoulder line, I'm going to take half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. I will indicate that. On that point, I'll go down by 1 inch from my shoulder slope, and then I'll slant into my neckline like this. So the next thing I'll do is to mark half of my shoulder measurement also on my chest line. Half of my shoulder measurement is 8 inches. I'm going to indicate that with a point, and then I'll connect the point on my shoulder line to meet the point on my chest line, just like this. The next thing I'll do is to measure the straight line that I have here, and I'm going to mark the middle point. So I'll divide the straight line into two. What I had was 7 inches, half of it is 3.5 inches. So I indicated that with a dot. On that dot, I went in by half an inch. I also indicated that with another dot. On my chest line, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm also going to indicate that with a dot. From there, I'm going to cover out my armhole. So I'm going to connect from my shoulder line to meet the half an inch, and from there to meet my bust measurement that I just took on my chest line, just like this. So if you don't have a ruler, you can use your free hand. After doing that, guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to take my bust pan measurement, which is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. Mine is 4 inches, so I'm going to take 4 inches on my under bust line, on my waistline, and on the top length, and then I'm going to connect the 3 dots into a straight line. So on my bust line, I'm going to go down by 1 inch, just like you see me doing, and then I'll extend my dart line to meet the dots that I just made, which is the 1 inch. After doing that, on my top length, I'm going to take in my dart. So I'm going to take half an inch on the center front and half an inch on the side front, and I'll use my ruler to connect from there to meet the 1 inch dots that I have below my bust line. The next thing I'll do is to start placing my measurements on the lines. So on my chest line, I already have my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm just going to add 2 inches to it for stitching allowance. On my under bust line, I'm going to place my under bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to replace the dart that I took, and I'll add 2 inches for stitching allowance. On my waistline, I'll also place my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart, I'll add 2 inches for stitching allowance. And on my top length, I'm going to place my hip circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart and I'll add my stitching allowance. After doing that, I'm just going to connect all the dots together. So what I'm going to do next is to place my tape on my shoulder line, and I'm going to go down by 7 inches. So you can decide to go down by 8 inches or 6 inches, but this is where the Milkmaid Bustier neckline is going to start from. For me, I don't want it to be too low, so I'm just going to mark 7 inches, and then I'm going to connect it like this. I will roll a straight line across the 7 inches. So this is my new neckline for this top. Remember, this top is an off shoulder top, so we don't need the rest part of this pattern paper. So after doing that, guys, I don't want the base of my top to be just straight, so I'm going to go up by 2 inches for my top length. I'm going to indicate that, and then I'm going to use my ruler to curve from this center front to meet the 2 inches like this. So this is optional. If you want your top to be straight, you don't have to do this. So guys, after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to cut. So pay close attention to see where I'm cutting, so you know where to cut. After cutting, this is what I have. I'm going to use this pattern paper to cut out the back before we proceed with the front. So before I do that, I'm going to label my under bust line because I don't want to make any mistake. So I'm going to place this on my fabric folded into 2 or folded into 4, and then I'm going to just trace what I have. Don't forget to leave your zipper allowance. I've gone ahead to do that. I left half an inch on the upper part, half an inch on the base. I also left my zipper allowance, and I also went ahead to notch my dart. So if you are taking in your dart, it's very important to notch your dart so you know where to sew. So I went ahead to cut out 4 pieces for this because I want to use this fabric as my lining. And remember, my right side is facing the right side, so I'm going to pin all the way around, and I'm going to sew. The only part I'm not going to sew is my armhole because I'm going to turn everything inside out through the armhole. So guys, after doing that, let's proceed to work on the front part of this top. So guys, if you've not labeled your under bust line, go ahead and do that so you don't make any mistake. What I'm going to do is to slash through the under bust line. So that is why I labeled my under bust. So I'm just going to cut that part out. We are going to use that part to create our Milkmaid bustier. So after cutting out, guys, I'm going to drop the base and work on this part. We'll be working on the cup first. So what I'm going to do is to mark 2 inches at different intervals. So I'm going to place my tape like this, and I'll mark 2 inches. From that 2 inches, I'll place my tape and mark another 2 inches. I'll keep doing that till I get to the end of this pattern paper. So I have like 4 lines, 4 dots. So what I'm going to do is to roll a straight line across all the mark that I've just made. After doing that, I'll go ahead and number them so that I don't mix everything up. So guys, the next thing I'll do is to slash through all these lines that I've made. I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2, so the side of the fabric that is facing me is folded into 2. Is going to serve as my center front. So from the upper part of this fabric, I'm going to go down by 2 inches, and I'm going to mark that into a straight line. After doing that, I'm going to bring in number 1. I'll place it on my center front, which is on fold, and I'll pin it down. I'm going to now spread this pattern paper by 2.5 inches. So from number 1, I marked 2.5 inches. I indicated that with my chalk. So I'm going to place number 2 on that 2.5 inches mark. So if you don't understand, just look at what I'm doing. I pinned it down. I'm also going to mark 2.5 inches, and I also indicate that with my chalk, and then I'll place number 3. So I'm spreading my pattern paper by 2.5 inches. I'll keep doing that till I get to number 5. So after doing that, remember I took 2 inches on the upper part of this fabric. On the base, I'm going to make sure I leave half an inch, which is going to serve as my joining allowance, and then I'll go ahead and cut. So when I get to the armhole area, I'm going to cut my armhole exactly as it is on the pattern paper. So after doing that, guys, remember to leave your stitching allowance on the base. I'm going to go ahead and remove my pattern paper, and this is what I have. Remember, my center front is on fold. That is why I have like a straight fabric. So guys, for the down part of this top, you can decide to just place this on your fabric folded into two, and then you just cut out and take in your dart. But for me, I want to cut this part out separately, so I'm going to go ahead and take out my dart. After cutting out my dart, I'm going to label. This is the side front and the center front. Sorry, I made a mistake. I'm going to indicate the up, the down, the center, so that I don't mix up anything, and I'm going to place them on my fabric. So I made a mistake. I didn't cut my center front on fold. So if you are cutting yours, if you are doing what I am doing, please make sure your center front is on fold. And you can also see that I'm adding stitching allowance all the way around except the center front. So make sure you add stitching allowance, and also notch the two sides so you know where you are sewing by the time you are done cutting. So I'm going to cut out 4 pieces for this. But if you're not doing what I am doing, just place your fabric, your pattern paper on your fabric, and just cut out straight so you don't go through all this stress. So I went ahead to cut out 4 pieces for each of these pattern papers. So I'm going to place them right sides facing each other. Remember, I said you should notch, so because I notched, that is why I know where to place on the other one. So I'm just going to place them one after the other. After placing them on each other, I'm going to go ahead and sew on a straight line. So I'll be using the stitching allowance that I left to sew on a straight line like this. I'll do the same thing for the remaining 3 pieces. So this is my back piece. I've already gone ahead to sew all around, and I turned it inside out with the armhole area. The next thing I'm going to do is to fix my zip and take in my dart. I'm not going to take in my dart anyway. After sewing, this is what I have. So don't forget that your center front should be on fold, so that by the time you join the two sides, you are just going to have 1 piece, not 2, just like my own is. So what I'm going to do is to fold this down, and I'm going to create like a boning casing. So I'm just going to iron it down, and I'll run a straight stitch on it. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side. So this is what I mean. I created like a boning casing on the 2 sides. After doing that, I went ahead to join my center front that I was supposed to cut on fold, but I made a mistake, so I went ahead to join it back. So I have like a boning casing, like a boning illusion on the front part of my top. I don't know if you guys understand, but I'm going to go ahead and join the center front. So this boning casing that I created, if I like, I can insert my boning, but I don't have boning to put, so I'm just going to leave it there. It's going to look like there's boning inside, but there's no boning. So next thing I will do is to bring in my cup, and I'm going to create a channel for my elastic band. So I'm going to fold into 2, and I'll sew on a straight line, and on the base I'll go ahead and run a gathered stitch. So guys, I've gone ahead to do that. I've created the channel for my boning casing, and I also went ahead to run a gathered stitch on the base of the cup. So I'm going to bring in my elastic band. The length of the elastic band is 10 inches. So I'm going to use my safety pin to pass my elastic band through the casing. After passing it, I'm going to use my pin to hold it down on both ends, and I'll go ahead and stitch them down. And for the base of the cup, I already went ahead to run my gather stitch. Just like I said before, I'm going to take one end of the thread, and I'm going to pull gently to form my gathers. So guys, I'm done doing that, and this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do is to bring the down part. So I've already gone ahead to join my center front together, so I have like a straight fabric. I also went ahead to join the lining, so I have the lining and the main fabric. So what I'm going to do is to place the lining and the main fabric on each other like this, and I'll pin all the way around, right sides facing each other. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the base. To close the base up, I'll sew the side, and I'll leave the upper part open. I'm not going to sew the upper part. I'll use the upper part to turn it inside out. I've gone ahead to sew and I've notched all the way around. So what I'm going to do is to turn it inside out like this. So the base is already closed. I'm going to bring back my cup. So remember, the base of the cup is the part that we gathered. So I'm going to place the cup on my fabric, right sides facing each other, just like what you see me doing, and I'm going to arrange the gathers on the down part of this blouse. So if you don't understand, just look at what I'm doing. I'll arrange everything and then I'll go ahead and sew. So guys, I've done that. I've gone ahead to sew, and this is what I have on the outside. This is also what I have on the inside. The next thing I'm going to do is to bring back my back piece. I've already gone ahead to sew in my zipper, so I'm going to place the back and the front together. So you can see that the back is wider than the front because I did not take in my dart. I didn't do that because this fabric is a bit stretchy, so I didn't want to take out the dart. So I went ahead to use my joining allowance to join the back and the front together. After doing that, I went ahead to turn it inside out, and this is what I have. So the allowance you left before is what you're going to use to join your back and the front together. So after doing that, we are going to go ahead and cut our sleeves. I'll be cutting a totally different sleeves from what you can see on the thumbnail because I don't want a puff sleeve, but you can go ahead and draft out a puff sleeves. So I folded my fabric in a bias form, so it looks like flare, and my fabric is folded into 4. So I'm going to cut the 2 sleeves together at the same time. So what I'm going to do is to bring the armhole area of my top and I'm going to arrange it together like this. So I'm going to place the armhole area on the open side of my fabric. So like I said, my fabric is folded into 4. I just placed the armhole area on the open side of this fabric, and I'm going to trim exactly what I have on the armhole. I'm going to trim on the fabric. So after doing that, guys, this is what I have. And before I forget, the wideness of these sleeves is 13 inches. 13 divided by 2 is 26. So for one sleeves, the wideness is 26 inches. So I have 13 inches times 4 on my table, and the length of the sleeves is 25 inches. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to create a casing for my elastic band to pass through. So I'm going to open up my fabric. On the upper part, I'm going to fold it inward like this, just like we did for our cup, and I'll create a channel for my elastic band to pass through. I'll do the same thing for the other side of the sleeve. The length of my elastic band is 7.5 inches. So I'm going to create the casing and I'll pass my elastic band through. So guys, I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what I have for the upper part of the sleeves. I also went ahead to stitch the side of the elastic band. So on the base of my sleeves, I'm going to go up. I'm going to mark 8 inches. So just look at what I'm doing. I'm going to place my tape on the base like this, and I'll mark 8 inches. I'll use my chalk to make the 8 inches into a straight line. So I'm doing this on the wrong side of my fabric. I'll keep doing that till I get to the end of my sleeves. So after doing that, I'm going to cut out my elastic band that I'll use to gather the sleeves together. So the length of this elastic band is 7 inches. I'm going to place the elastic band on the straight line that I just made, and I'll keep drawing the elastic to form gathers on my sleeves. So guys, I've gone ahead to do that, and I also closed my sleeves on the side. So this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do is to join the sleeves to my top. So I'm going to bring the armhole area of the top. I'm going to pin them right sides facing right sides. So I'm going to place like this, and then I'm going to pin. After pinning, I'll go ahead and stitch. I'll repeat the same thing for the other side of the sleeves. So you can also go ahead and hem the base of your sleeves. So guys, after sewing both sleeves to the top, and that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I'm going to just go ahead and give this top a very good press. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please don't forget to like. If you have any question, leave it in the comment section. Please subscribe to my channel if you have not. I'll see you guys in the next one.